So I make it 3 o'clock. So we'll make a start. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simon Corby. I'm a director at the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. And welcome to our awards 2021. Drum roll, drum roll. So here we go. Our program today over the next hour and a half is such. So we've got 6 finalists, and we've got 10 minutes with each of these finalists. And then we're going to ask you, the audience, to vote for your favourite. And our board have made a decision, and they'll be with us today to announce that. And then we'll wrap up at 4:30. So we need to keep to time. So I'm going to have a stopwatch and make sure that we do that. So just a few instructions. So we've got, as I said, 4 minutes for questions from the audience after each finalist has made their presentation. So we've got 1 minute video, and then 5 minutes of slides, and then 4 minutes of questions for everybody. So put your questions in the Q&A. If you like that question, upvote it. We'll deal with the ones that are most popular, and we'll ask those, and we'll unmute you to ask that question. Please don't raise your hand because we're not looking after that. And if you've got any technical problems, pop it in the chat. And please remember, we are recording. So a big thank you to our sponsors. Couldn't do it without you. So we've got Tabitha Binding here today from the Timber Trade Federation, and they're our gold sponsor, and she'll be handing out the People's Awards later. And our silver sponsor is Cleveland Steel and Tubes. So Roy Fishwick, thank you very much, sir. And then the team at Styco is our bronze sponsor. So huge thank you to all of them. So this is who you should have been sliding your brown envelopes to. So this is our board. Of course, they're above all of that. Usually we will be out visiting buildings, and that's a picture of the team. But this time around, of course, we're unable to get out. So we've asked for your personal insights on building back better, on good ideas, radical action, practical solutions. And we've asked our finalists to see how their solution responds to our 6 pillars of sustainable construction that I'll go into in just a second. So we've been so delighted with all the entries that we've had. So thank you to everybody who's made an application. It's been really outstanding. It's been so hard to whittle it down from quite a long list down to this final half a dozen. And we've got the sort of long list, the 12, up on our website to have a look at. So just as a reminder, we're a not-for-profit mission-led membership organisation. And we're a knowledge-sharing organisation. We've got lots of webinars, free briefing papers, etc. up on our website. And in principle, we've got 6 different sort of themes of work, but of course we need to wrap all those things up together. It's not looking at things in silos, but seeing how they integrate together. So we launched back in 2011. We'll be 10 years old later this year. We started off with just 9 members, and we've climbed over the years, and we've got 80 plus. And we're aiming to make that up to 100 in the summer. So these are our members. A huge thank you to all of our members, because without you, we couldn't really do our job. So we need members and that enable us to help push along our mission. So, you know, from Wienerberger, the very large companies who've been with us as patron members since the beginning, to one-man bands and the innovators like Biome. So, and everybody in between, range of architects, engineers, academics, etc., and suppliers and manufacturers. So I'm just going to mention this research project very quickly. So we're looking at waste duvets, which is a bit of a waste problem at the moment. I'm wondering, or we're looking at how we can perhaps refiberize them and reintroduce them as new products for insulation. So do get involved with the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. Join us as a member. We aim to be very cost competitive. Sign up for our free newsletter or become a sponsor. Support our events or research activities. or just get involved with one of our groups. So keep an eye out on our website for updates. And this is our team. We're very friendly, quite responsive. So do get in touch if we can help with anything further. So thanks very much for your attention. That's the introduction side of things done. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Richard's done that. Thank you. And we're going to get into the exciting part of the program now. This is where we have our award finalists. So up first is ACAN. We've done this in alphabetical order. We felt that that seemed to be the fairest. So Matteo from ACAN is up first. So we've got a video that Richard is going to show, 5 minutes of slides and 4 minutes of Q&A. So over to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. Hopefully you can hear this okay.
There is a massive blind spot in our national construction policy. Up to 80% of a new building's greenhouse gas emissions will be caused by its construction, maintenance, and demolition.
These emissions, known within the industry as embodied carbon, are unregulated.
In the UK, embodied carbon accounts for more than 10% of our total national emissions.
The construction industry has the skill and knowledge to tackle these emissions. What's missing is the political will and leadership.
ACAN is launching a campaign calling for whole life cycle carbon limits to be set within national planning policy and the building regulations.
With a comprehensive report, policy briefing and wider political movement, ACAN will engage and awaken policymakers on this critical matter.
The benefits of this type of policy are far-reaching, supporting the creation of thousands of green jobs in the UK.
The case to implement this policy is clear, but requires a systemic change to protect us all from devastating climate change and environmental degradation.
ACAN's latest campaign demands that this change starts right now.
Brilliant.
Lovely.
Okay, Matteo, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Can you see my screen?
We can, thank you.
Great. So first slide, who we are. We are the Architects Climate Action Network, ACAN, a voluntary network of 500 plus individuals from within architecture and its related built environment professions, taking action to transform our industry in the face of the climate and ecological crisis. Our mission is to address the way our built environment is made, operated, and renewed in response to the climate emergency. As a network of construction industry professionals, we channel personal energy, expertise, and action towards a common goal: the systemic change of our profession and the construction industry as a whole. We see this as a matter of urgency. ACAN empowers individuals to proactively seek change and facilitates collective effort through a shared platform built on collaboration. You can see on the slides all the ACAN's thematic groups. ACAN is driven by three aims: rapid decarbonization of the built environment, ecological regeneration through the immediate adoption of regenerative and ecological principles, and cultural transformation of the profession. So this is our awards entry. This briefing note and the accompanying technical report written by members of the ACAN Embodied Carbon thematic group to launch a campaign to regulate embodied carbon in the UK. The report has been through a pan-industry peer review process and has been endorsed by several organizations. The briefing note is aimed at politicians and policymakers and explains the key facts about embodied carbon and also the recommendations for regulating it in the UK. So our recommendations are from 2021, having Regulation 7 of the building regs to be revised to introduce carbon limits on specific materials, and the new London Plan Policy SI2 to be adopted by local authorities around the UK, establish a freely accessible database for anonymized whole life carbon assessments data of new buildings, create a freely accessible UK environmental product declaration database to ensure consistent and reliable assessments. By 2022, we ask that the building regulation are expanded to include requirements to assess, report, and reduce embodied carbon within a new part of the building regs called Part Z, embodied carbon emissions. And we also ask that clauses are introduced to national planning policy framework with requirements for whole life carbon assessments to be submitted as part of pre-application and planning submissions and a practical completion as well. And finally, by 2025, introduce strict limit values on embodied carbon emissions for all developments. So how does this campaign addresses the ASBP's 6 pillars? Well, this flow chart summarizes what is embodied carbon and why it should be regulated. By introducing regulation, measures required to reduce embodied carbon emissions will need to be widely adopted by the industry. These are the 5 principles of build less, build smart, build efficiently, build circular, and build durable. The benefits coming from adopting these measures are summarized in our briefing note and support the creation of green jobs in the UK manufacturing by stimulating demand for sustainable building products. Support the upcoming England Tree strategy by boosting the UK timber industry, kickstart the nascent construction materials recycling industry, provide an incentive for the retention of existing buildings over demolition, provide businesses with a clear timeline to adapt to net zero, stimulating innovation in the development of new materials with a lower embodied carbon footprint. These are, of course, in line with the ASBP's 6 pillars. And in fact, one could argue that without embodied carbon regulations, the 6 pillars will be impossible to achieve on a large scale in the UK construction sector. So why is this important? Well, this is a list of all the countries in the world and their carbon emissions. The UK construction industry alone emits more than all the total emissions from each individual country in grey. So more than entire countries such as Ireland, Sweden, Morocco, etc. This is the perfect moment for the UK to adopt this policy and follow in the footsteps of other European countries, such as France, Norway, and the Netherlands that have already introduced embodied carbon regulations. And these are 2 pages from our report. On the left, I quote from the Committee on Climate Change, saying that substantial gaps and weaknesses remain in the government's set of policies for decarbonisation of manufacturing and construction. And we believe that this is mainly down to the fact that embodied carbon is not regulated. And on the right, another quote from the UK government own industrial strategy white paper from 2017, saying that a whole new industry will be created and existing industry transformed as we move towards a low carbon, more resource efficient economy. Well, without embodied carbon regulations, it's impossible to get there. So please go to the ACAN website, support our campaign, sign our online petition, and share our briefing note. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Matteo. So as you, the audience, you're going to have to make a decision at the end of all of these presentations as to who you consider to be the winner for this year. So I'd quite like to see some questions and questions coming into the Q&A. So audience, if you can start typing and put your questions in, that'd be great. In the meantime, I got a couple of just quick questions. So just to start us off, so can you just tell me how long ACON has been operating?
So we had our first meeting in October of 2019. So it's just been about a year and a half.
Okay, and how many people do you think are actively involved with the network?
I think it's about 500 people. So at the beginning, we showed you all those thematic groups, and they've been kind of growing, and there's new thematic groups happening all the time. We've done campaigns for consultations for Part L and Part B. So every time there's a consultation or something coming up with the planning and reforms, and new groups form. So it's quite a dynamic organization.
Okay, thank you, Matteo. So questions have started to come in now in the Q&A, so please keep them coming in. So I've got an anonymous attendee, and the question is, how engaged are the UK government with this initiative?
Well, we actually, when we did the campaign, we did a campaign event, and we had Emma Dent-Coate, who is an MP, an ex-MP for Kensington, and she's actually an architectural historian, and she basically told us that it's amazing how many politicians don't actually know how a building is built. And you know, she said that, you know, we needed to explain it in a very clear way, and that was the key of our campaign. And that's why we did this briefing note, which is actually based, we got advice from people that have done all sorts of different campaigns, not building related. But we wanted to have a briefing note that made very clear what the background to embodied carbon is and what the recommendations are. And we are writing to our MPs, we are encouraging everyone to write to their MPs. And this is just the beginning of this campaign.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I've got time for maybe one more question. So I've got a few anonymous attendees, but I've got one lady, Claire Gartner, who has just asked a question. So Richard, maybe we can unmute Claire and invite Claire to ask her question.
Sure.
And we'll put that to Matteo. So welcome to the event, Claire. Thanks for participating.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity to join you all. I'm a third year architecture student, as a mature student, having worked in the construction industry for maybe 20 years. What engagement policy do you anticipate you could encourage to be put into place for students of all areas of the built environment? We're fortunate to have a very forward-thinking set of tutors and course convener who's made our final project to be carbon neutral. But how many other universities do you know of, or do you already work with, that are aware of you as an organisation?
Yeah, so the report has been endorsed by the University of Bath. That, of course, has been at the forefront of embodied carbon research for many years, and they endorsed our report. I and other members of the Embodied Carbon Group have been working with different universities. I've done a presentation to the University of Westminster last week, taking people through the report. But also we've got within ACAN a very big and active education group that has been working in general about the issue of bringing carbon literacy to architectural education. So we are able to kind of share these different networks within ACAN and to work with universities.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Matteo. You've done really, really well. So there's a few more questions in the Q&A. So perhaps I can ask you to type your answers to those, and whilst we move on to our next finalist. So that's
Okay,
Jeffrey. Thanks, Matteo. So if you can stop sharing. And so we're going to move on to Jeffrey from the Building Sustainability podcast. And so we've got a 1-minute video that Richard's queuing up as we speak. So we'll watch that and then we'll move on to Jeffrey's slides. So brilliant. Thank you, Richard.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Hart, host and producer of the Building Sustainability podcast. I'm a builder and trainer, focused on building healthy, efficient homes. Join me every fortnight in conversation with designers, builders, makers, dreamers and doers, exploring the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things. We look at sustainability in the built environment with a wide lens. Episodes might focus on materials, techniques, products, architecture, craft, heritage, or nature, with each guest bringing a new angle on the complex topic of sustainability. Whether you want to learn more about healthy materials and navigating your own self-build, or just want to know that better alternatives are out there, this is the podcast for you.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Jeffrey. So over to you. So we've got 5 minutes. If you can talk us through your slides, that'd be great. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, can you all see that?
We can, thank you.
Excellent. So my name is Jeffrey Hart. That is me, looking pretty pleased with myself. So as I said, I'm a builder and an educator with a focus on building high performance buildings from low and impact materials and natural materials. On the right hand side there, and featured in the video, is a project that I worked on last year, which was 2 straw bale studios, and that was built by 10 students that came to us for the entire project. They built the foundations, they built the walls, they built everything. So that's my day job. The Building Sustainability Podcast. So it's conversations with experts in the built environment and other associated areas. These conversations generally last for about an hour, and a new episode will arrive on your phone or computer for free every other week. And just launched this week our 10-minute bite-size episodes, which are released in the weeks in between. So the podcast was started to inspire and educate the listeners. And it was also created to be a bridge between the hippie ideals of natural materials, which are often poorly detailed, and the high-tech building science worlds, which are often using questionable materials. So I think that the podcast is successful because the relaxed conversation style really allows the listener to be drawn into the conversation and connect much more with what's being said. One piece of feedback I received said, "It's more like sitting around a fire listening to 2 friends discuss things than a stuffy pre-rehearsed presentation." So the Building Sustainability Podcast doesn't just address the ASBP 6 pillars of sustainability. I actually use them to plan future episodes and guests. So every episode we'll discuss at least one pillar, usually 3 or 4 come up, and I've got a few examples there. So for health and well-being, I talked to Claire from Clayworks, and we talked about the indoor air quality and acoustic benefits of clay plasters. For resource efficiency, I talked to Kiran Pereira about the sustainability of sand and how most people assume it's a renewable material. It's definitely not, and it is running out at a kind of rapid rate. Whole life carbon was a really interesting one. The good people from Fullgrown, they looked at the way that furniture was produced. Grow a tree for 30, 40 years, chop it down, chop it up, kiln dry it, move it around, chop it up some more, create more waste, eventually glue it all back together to make to make a bit of furniture. Their solution to that was to grow the tree and actually form the tree around formers to create the furniture as it grows. And then they just chop off the roots and chop off the branches, and they've got a chair. So ethics and transparency. This was a conversation with Will Stanix, co-author of the Hempcrete book. And we chatted a lot about the big failures that we'd had as builders, things that had gone wrong and why. And I think that was really helpful for people to see, that maybe the assumptions we've made that led to things failing. Technical performance. So Judith Thornton works at Aberystwyth University, and she is growing different types of plants in the lab and then analysing them for their insulative values, or how well or how badly they break down when exposed to moisture. And then social value was a chat with Noel Isherwood, who was part of the Poundbury expansion of Dorchester, which put the pedestrian at the centre of town planning. There is one extra layer that I sort of focus on with this, and that's actually sustainability of the self. And that's looking after ourselves as professionals in this industry and avoiding burnout. So yeah, I think it's quite easy to take the future of the planet onto our shoulders. So I'm going to dazzle with some stats. You can see the growth of the podcast in monthly downloads. It increased dramatically around April last year when lockdown happened, and I really focused a lot more on creating more episodes. But right now we have 43 episodes with 41 guests. That's a total of 49 hours of content, so 2 days. This morning we had 54,000 downloads, and if we took the average of the last 2 months, that's 6,200 downloads per month, or 207 per day. So I want to end just by saying thank you, actually, to the ASBP for bringing together such a diverse awards final. It gives me great hope that we can achieve sustainability in the built environment by being alongside such diverse and excellent projects. One of my podcast guests, Paul Allen from Zero Carbon Britain, said that we need everyone driving change wherever they can. And I see that clearly here in the finalists. So it's been an honour to be here, and thanks for your time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. That's brilliant. Okay, so audience, be great if you could pop some questions in the chat. So we've got 1 or 2 in there that ACAN are responding to at the moment. So I'll ask a couple of questions just to kick us off.
Sure.
So how long have you been doing this, Jeffrey?
Coming up for 2 years now.
Right, okay. And how does it work as a business model? Is it something that you do in your own time?
Very much. Well, it started off being what I do in my own time. When in lockdown, I was furloughed, and I decided to spend a lot more time on it. And that started generating a lot of feedback and a lot of people saying how beneficial it was to their sort of journey. And so at that point, I decided to take myself down to 4 days a week and spend 1 day a week focusing on the podcast. And financially, I mean, it's so at the moment it's got a Patreon, and that brings in some money a month. I unfortunately worked out what my hourly rate was based on that, and it's not that great. But it's increasing month by month, pretty steadily actually. And then we've just started with a sponsorship opportunity. So some people are finding that we've got a really sort of engaged group of listeners that are, they're ripe for some sustainable products.
Fantastic. My ears really pricked up when you said that you were talking about where things have gone wrong, because for me, there's not nearly enough of that. And we all know that actually we learn from our mistakes, and unless we talk about our mistakes, we then don't learn. But of course, in the commercial world, it's the last thing that you want to do is talk about things going wrong. So
yeah,
I think we need to try and address that. And surely we all know that actually that's the strongest learning opportunity, is where something has not gone quite to plan.
Yes. Another thing that Paul said, who said my last quote, he said that failure is the compost of success. And
yeah, I couldn't agree. What a good quote. Yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic. All right, so I've got a question in here from Jenny Ford. So Richard, perhaps we can ask, do you need to unmute, or can they just do that themselves? No, okay, so we just need to fiddle with our controls, unmute you, Jenny, and I'm going to ask you, oh, you're asking an ACAN question. So, okay, sorry, I'm catching up with myself there. So I've got an anonymous attendee question. So it looks like an offer of help here, Jeffrey. It says, do you do your own editing, and do you have any helpers? Clearly what I'm reading between the lines is, would you like some?
Well, I hope not reading between the lines is that it sounds rubbish. So I do it all myself. Yeah, I am producer, scheduler, editor, promoter, all of it.
Brilliant. Okay. And I've got another question coming. So we've got an anonymous attendees asking, are you going to be back on site post-COVID?
Yes, very much so.
And when do you think that might be?
So I have a small build starting on the 1st of May. So
whereabouts is that, Jeffrey?
That will be in Exmoor.
Lovely. That sounds superb.
Yes. So that's an off-grid. It's a tiny house on a trailer. cork insulation, so an external cork facade insulation. Yeah, fully natural materials.
That sounds so exciting. I look forward to hearing some more about that as time unfolds. So no doubt there's an opportunity for us to see that build in action, is there?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time. That's really super. So please keep your questions coming in on the Q&A to Jeffrey. We've got a few more there for you, Jeffrey. So it'd be great if you could keep an eye on the Q&A, same with ACAN, and answer those questions that are there. Now we're going to move on to Tom Ruddle from Egg Lighting. So welcome, Tom. Thank you for your contribution. So we're going to show your video for a minute and then ask you to show your slides. So brilliant. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Tom. I'm an engineer at Egg Lighting, and I'm going to explain briefly why all light fittings should have digital passports. It's quite normal to reuse lots of tech, for example computers or phones, but when lights get damaged, aren't needed anymore, or even just need new LEDs, they very often end up in a skip. Unfortunately though, less than 10% of light fittings are even collected for recycling, let alone for reuse. Over lockdown, we had an opportunity to explore ideas which could help solve this. I realised that the biggest barrier to reusing light fittings is actually information. Reuse operators need technical information about a product, and customers need an assurance of quality as well as the environmental benefits associated with reuse. We can only tackle the climate emergency through collaboration, so I got in touch with the team behind the first open data standard for reuse. We're now working together with Reef to make all the information needed to repair or reuse any light available at the scan of a QR code. We're really excited about this digital passport approach and hope it can make circularity not just possible, but the norm.
Excellent. Thank you very much for Tom. All right, if I can ask you to share your screen and pop through your slides, that'd be great. Thank you. I can't hear you, Tom. I don't know whether, are you on mute maybe?
Sorry, yeah, I'm back. He's taken all of my points. Sorry,
okay.
Hang on a second. I'm just...
Let's go back to the beginning.
There we go. So sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm Tom. I'm a circular design engineer at Egg Lighting. We're a lighting provider in Scotland, so we're based in Glasgow. And we provide complete lighting systems as well as innovative control and sensor technology. And we really believe in intertwining that innovative approach with circularity. So as other me explained, we over lockdown had an opportunity to kind of think about the lighting industry that we want to be part of. And the vision that we came up with was to have a collaborative ecosystem of reuse and remanufacture operators across the UK who would be able to collect used lighting and restore it to new performance with an equivalent as new guarantee. And unfortunately, this is not the case currently. And we're thinking about what the drivers, what the enablers, and what the barriers are to that vision. And we realized that information is the key challenge at the moment. So this is why we believe very strongly that every light should have a digital passport to enable circularity. So a bit of a cliche quote here, but you can't improve what you don't measure. And digital passports allow us to measure the circularity of the products that we provide. I should add as well, we really hope that there will be as much uptake of this approach on a standardized basis as possible. This isn't something we see as proprietary. So digital passports to the remanufacturing operator, the experts, provides them with the technical information they need to assess whether a light can be repaired. And to the customer, it provides a complete guarantee of quality, the history of the light, as well as data, reputable data about the environmental impact of reusing lights. So you can see on the graphic from the left, all of this is this tied together an accelerated communication process through the use of digital technology. So I think we've ticked off some of the ASBP's 6 pillars quite well with this. So firstly, we really believe that this needs to cut across greenwash. We need to be able to compare, based on evidence, different alternatives for end of life of lighting equipment. We also believe that all technical performance information and components, for example, should be recorded in an easily accessible way. In terms of social value, there are currently 19,000 remanufacture workers in Scotland and 192,000 across Europe. And we think that this digital passport for lighting equipment can kickstart this industry in lighting. We also acknowledge that a really big problem in lighting is improper disposal at end of life, and making the information required to correctly dispose of equipment is important. And finally, penultimately, the environmental benefits to do with reusing, upgrading and remanufacturing lighting is really significant, just in terms of raw waste savings, but also CO2. And we want this to be an open data standard. We don't want to be sort of profiting off this as a proprietary technique. So this is the problem. This is my problem statement. So this data below, you can see that in 2019, 42,000 tons of lighting equipment was sold to businesses in the UK. And unfortunately, only about 10% is actually collected to be treated as WEEE, which is in fact a legal requirement. As a result of this, we really believe that recycling should be the last resort. Wherever possible, we should do better. We should be upgrading existing lighting. And we think that digital passports are the enabling technology for this.
15 seconds.
Thank you. So just some commercial indicators there. This approach can save businesses money at the same time as doing the right thing for the environment and upgrading product efficiency. And just to reiterate that point, it's about providing operators with the technical information they need, as well as providing customers with the quality and the environmental benefit information back. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Tom. So audience, keep your questions coming. So pop them in the Q&A. So I'm going to start us off. There are no live questions. Jeffrey, you've got one live question there, and you've got a live question in the chat, just to keep you on your toes. So Tom, tell me a little bit more about the case study that you mentioned on your last slide, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, sure. So it's for a high bay installation, which is a warehouse, very high energy consumption in warehousing. And the lights are also, just as an upfront cost, very expensive. So it's really important that wherever possible, by replacing just the lighting components, the LEDs and the LED driver, we're able to keep the optics, the actual fitting itself. Those fittings were 7 kilograms of aluminium. We're able to keep that in use and provide that information of the benefits back to the client. So in that case study, we, as a comparison to replacing that entire system with new lighting, remanufacturing was able to save £15,000 to the client. And also just because of the ongoing technology improvements in LED, the LEDs that we installed in the remanufactured situation were 30% more efficient than the original model. But all of this needs to be captured into a digital passport, and that information needs to be provided clearly back to the client. And that's what this project is about.
So what format will that digital passport take?
That's a good question. It's an open data standard, so it will require someone more digitally savvy than myself to explain that. But it's a robust digital data entry, I suppose, that can be accessed by scanning a QR code on your smartphone, and that information can then be securely transmitted to a remanufacture operator across the UK.
Okay, excellent. It really does sound exciting. So you're in Glasgow. Now, with all due respect, you don't sound like you're Glaswegian. But you're well placed for COP 26. So I don't know if you've got any just general thoughts on COP, or if you're going to try and engage with the process at all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So we hope to be having a stand at COP, whether that goes ahead or not. You're very correct. I'm not originally from Glasgow. We actually provide lighting to customers across Scotland, but also across England. And given that 75% of lighting equipment sold in the UK is imported, even if these distances can feel quite far, you know, road transport within the UK is a lot more sustainable than the alternatives. So yeah, and with regarding COP, I think it's just very important that as much momentum is built up. So we've signed the SME Climate Hub Pledge, which involves a net zero commitment and also measuring our operational carbon emissions. So that's been a positive development for us over lockdown.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I really like that. That's and really informative, really interesting. So thank you so much. So keep your questions coming in, audience. So pop those in the Q&A rather than the chat, if you would. And Tom, if I can ask you to keep an eye on those and respond to any questions as they come in. So super, we're going to move on. Thank you, Tom. So we're going to move on now to Kate Brown at FabHab. So Richard, if you can queue up the video, and we'll hand over to Kate. Thank you. Stop dancing now. So thanks, Kate. Over to you. Thank you. If you share your screen, thank you.
Can you see my screen?
We can, yeah.
Great, and you can obviously hear me. Thank you, Simon.
Pleasure.
Right, I'm Kate Brown from FabHab. My business partner, Oliver Margison, is also on the call as a panelist, so he can answer your technical questions later on. We make people and planet positive buildings. This started off as an idea and it grew into a prototype in 2020. Our mission is to transform housing to minimise its environmental impact and maximise its social impact. FabHab is a system for timber frame homes that are beautiful, quick and easy to build without specialist skills and use natural off-the-shelf materials. We founded FabHab in January last year. Our approach challenges the norms of housing design and construction, really reflecting on what's already been said by ACAN and by Jeffrey as well. We focus an awful lot on embodied carbon and the materials that are in use in the building to create a planet positive outcome, but we also focus a great deal on social impact as well. Why do we do that? Because we know the solutions exist for both of those things. Firstly, to create a better than net zero built environment, and also to provide good quality, healthy, comfortable homes for everyone. No matter what the building is, so whether this is something that we build using our own system or whether we design or consult on another project, everything we do is low impact, high performing and planet and people positive. What I'm showing you over here on the right hand side is we learn with every building, and we continue to innovate and use research in our work. So everything that we do on a project, we feed back into our processes and our specifications and our work. How does what we do align with the ASBP's 6 pillars? Well, really well, actually. And this was brilliant when I wrote our original submission, because it was quite easy for me to outline how what we do works. I can't see my own screen at the moment because of all the pop-ups. In terms of health and well-being, we know that the COVID pandemic has really shone a really bright light on the relationship between housing and health. A Fab Hab provides the best environment for people using natural materials, and it's designed to perform so it's healthy and comfortable. In terms of resource efficiency, we digitally manufacture the kits using off-the-shelf materials to minimise waste and also to maximise cost certainty. So our prototype, its cost came in within 1% of the original estimate. We use mechanical fixings as well to enable deconstruction and reuse at end of life, and also easier repair and maintenance throughout the building's lifespan. In terms of whole life carbon, this is my area of research. We use biogenic materials, meaning that our build system is better than net zero. And we also use passive design strategies to minimise operational energy consumption. So over its lifetime, a Fab Hab will be climate positive. And what we mean by that is better than zero. So some people would call that negative carbon, some people call that positive carbon, we call that climate positive. In terms of ethics and transparency, we're targeting B Corp accreditation to lock our business with purpose approach into everything we do in our operations, focusing on delivering positive environmental and social impact. From a technical performance perspective, we're research led, as I already mentioned, and we make sure that we continue to innovate to use the best designs and approaches and materials, and we analyse the buildings pre and post occupancy to check that they work as modelled and analyse their whole life impact. Then in terms of social value, and this is really important to what we do, they don't require specialist skills to build, which enables individuals and communities to be involved in their own placemaking, which creates engagement, potentially creates employment, and also maximises social impact. We call this enabling communities to build communities. And this is my slightly left field slide. Anyone eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that our branding has changed since the video, because that was submitted a few weeks ago. We cannot all be astronauts. This is an essay written by Johan Rockström, who is the director of the Stockholm Resilience Centre. He describes the effect on astronauts when they see Earth from space for the first time. He says the astronauts see the green land masses surrounded by the blue oceans and the blue varnish, which you can see in this photograph, of the atmosphere, a layer so thin that no paintbrush is fine enough to convey it in an artist's view, and yet it is the holder of all life on Earth. Astronauts experience a deep insight that our planet, bursting with beauty and life, is merely a dot in an infinite universe, and a deep mind shift that our lives and our world depend on us caring for this small, beautiful, sensitive home. But sadly, we can't all be astronauts. And the need to live within planetary boundaries is really vital, and yet the built environment operates outside these boundaries in so many ways. So we need to change that. Our mission to create planet and people positive buildings will focus on the blue dot of Earth as seen from space, to remind us that it's everything we have and everything must operate within its boundaries. And furthermore, we'll be sharing what we learn with others to amplify these important messages, whether that's design approaches, low impact materials, analysis tools, and anything else we find, because we believe that the solutions do exist, as I said earlier, to create a better than net zero built environment and good quality, healthy, comfortable homes for all. So why would I like your vote today? We've built our prototype. We've built our prototype, and we've got a long waiting list of visitors. We're monitoring its performance to check how it performs versus the model. We're developing version 2 of the system to simplify it, increase material efficiencies, and enable off-site construction. And winning the ASBP award today would really help us build our reputation, create collaborations, and help to continue to challenge the status quo from a position of credibility. Thank you, Simon.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. That's really fantastic timing. It's almost like you've practiced. So please keep your questions coming in to Fab Hab team audience. So I'll kick us off. Tom, I think you've got one more question in the Q&A. I can see that. Be great if you could respond to that. So Kate, I'll kick us off on the questions. So how long have you guys been operating for?
Yeah, we started out, the idea was sketched on a notebook in December 2019. It began as, should we convert, well, the initial idea was tiny homes. How can we create more access to good quality, high performing homes? And we started looking at shipping containers, but we decided that wasn't a good idea.
No.
So Ollie, who's here on the call, we started just looking at a timber frame system right from the very beginning. So that was in December 2019, and quite quickly it grew into a well-developed idea sort of at the beginning of last year. And we had permission to build our prototype at a business park in Wallingford in Oxfordshire, but unfortunately that all kind of fell to pieces when COVID struck. So the prototype is built at Ollie's house, which is near Wallingford, luckily. But he's not sitting in it today, unfortunately, because he's homeschooling his children.
Okay. Yes, the responsibilities of fatherhood. Okay, so excellent. So tell me about the foundations, because as I understand it, there's sort of a bit of a bonus there. Is that right?
Yeah, so we use a jack pad system, so it treads really lightly on the ground. So it's just compacted hardcore underneath, and then these little, they are concrete, but there's also a recycled plastic version of these sort of foundations, and there's 12 of them to spread the load of the building on bearers. And they're adjustable, so it's all perfectly level. That really aids drainage for the building and makes sure that it's completely removable. So the building itself can be lifted up, put on a truck and taken somewhere else, and you can take the foundations with you and put it somewhere new. So it treads extremely lightly on the ground. There's no concrete, other than the fact that the jack pads happen to be made of concrete.
Minimal concrete.
Sorry?
Minimal concrete.
Very minimal concrete. There's certainly no concrete in the ground. And so if you took the building away, you could just rake over the gravel and you wouldn't know it had been there.
And equally, because it's modular, if you want to add additional sections to it, it's relatively easy then to add additional jack pads, and we set our structure on top of that.
Okay, lovely, thanks. So I've got a sort of question. So, and one of my questions is, who do you think is your key audience? Are you trying to work with house builders, or is it individuals?
It's an interesting question, because we've completely dodged the garden buildings office in the last 8 months, because we could easily have got drawn into that, and we've decided not to go that route. And we're working with a charity, and we're starting to talk to community land trusts about whether or not we can work with community organisations such as CLTs, and also our local district council are very interested in talking to us about solutions for social housing. So yes, potentially we could also talk to bigger house builders, but fundamentally we're a startup and we're just learning our way through how we're going to be doing business. But our long-term goal is to support community projects and to provide social housing and housing for the homeless and projects like that.
The key is that because you don't need the technical skill to build it, it's easy to self-build. You can understand the system, so we don't have to rely on house builders or developers to get the buildings built. We can rely on the communities themselves. So it means we're not paying third-party rates to get somebody else to build the building. The community's doing it themselves. That pound will then go further, can be spent on the building alone.
Okay, yeah, that's an exciting model. All right, so Richard, we've got a question here from Eileen Sutherland, who I'm looking forward to saying hello to. So we haven't seen Eileen for a little while. So perhaps we can ask her to, we can unmute her. Maybe Eileen, you can even put your camera on. How about that? Maybe if we've got...
Hi Simon, it's not Eileen, I'm afraid. I'm using her Zoom.
Ah, Barbara, you're...
Yeah,
okay,
sorry,
well,
but I am talking from the School of Natural Building.
I'm delighted to welcome you to our course, Barbara.
Thanks. So hi Kate, I just wanted to know what sort of OSB board you're using, because of course we look very carefully into our materials as well that we use for the school and making our small buildings. But one of the issues with OSB, of course, is the added formaldehyde, and it's created a lot of problems for modern schools with the OSB board that they've used there. And I wondered what you do about making sure that your OSB doesn't have added formaldehyde.
Might ask Ollie to answer this one if that's okay.
So, I mean, we used Norboard for this. I think it was Norboard, or it could have been Sterling, but we were very keen that, you know, we made sure that the product we used was a product that had no added formaldehyde to it. With part of our approach is keeping tabs on every emerging product that comes out. So we're very keenly looking at what people like WESA have in the pipeline for some of their ply products. You know, we don't see our system as a static system. We will constantly develop that system as and when better products come out. So it's a very big aspect of it, and we've got to keep on top of it. But because we want to use products that are readily available, we can go down to the builder's merchant and get them. So we're trying to find that balance at the moment, and hopefully, you know, as products move on, the importance is accepted by the wider masses. We'll see those products come online, and we just need to be ready to use them.
Right,
Okay.
thanks. I wasn't aware Norboard did have a formaldehyde-free board.
It might be Sterling board. I can't remember off the top of my head.
And as far as I'm aware, Medite have got a zero formaldehyde board. Is that right, Barbara?
Medite do, yes, and SmartPly and Elka board and Egger, but
and are they usually like a lot more expensive?
no.
Okay.
In fact, we got
Right.
a load of SmartPly for our Curtin Valley Park project.
Yeah.
Really cheaper than anybody could provide it, because we wanted so much of it.
Okay, well that is unusually good news. All right, thank you guys. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A. Kate, if I can ask you, Oliver, to respond to those, that would be super. We're going to move us along now. So I'd like to welcome Harry Patikas from RAFT, Retrofit Action for Tomorrow, or is that for today? Maybe I've got the acronym wrong, but you're going to tell me in a moment. So Richard, if we can cue up the video, and then we'll speak with Harry.
Our challenge is we want to create the first zero carbon plan for a school that has been led with pupils.
Sometimes older people say to young people not to get involved.
RAFT is a simple but radical idea. We are architects that provide expert retrofit and advice to schools and other community buildings on the path towards zero carbon. But we combine that with education and collaboration, involving children, schools and the local community throughout the whole process.
Are we allowed to go in, miss?
The result is a deep and unique engagement that has a ripple effect way beyond the buildings themselves. As you all go off into secondary school, you've got this fantastic chance to try and influence change.
We've got to believe in it, because we can make a change.
We are building a movement of people and organisations who have the passion and ideas to bring about the radical change we urgently need.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Harry, if I can ask you to share your screen and share your slides with us, please.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to be talking at the ASBP conference again. It's a real privilege to be among such fantastic finalists. So good luck to everybody. So RAFT has really emerged from a decade of experience of carrying out deep retrofit on domestic buildings. And really, out of frustration, I decided that I wanted to make a bigger impact. So I've handed over a previous practice and I've become an employee of a community interest company, not for shareholder profit company. We are an architecture, education and multidisciplinary practice. We're focused on engagement, as you can see on the left-hand side. We have talked to literally hundreds, possibly thousands of people in the last 6 months. We currently have 4 employees, and by May we expect to be 6 employees, which is very exciting to better grow during the COVID lockdown. And I have to say that we really do have fantastic support from our trustee directors, in particular from Lewisham Council, also from the wonderful sustainable construction community that we all exist within. And we've also been collaborating with Ashton and their Let's Go Zero 2030 campaign, which is a campaign to try and make all schools in the UK zero carbon, scopes 1, 2, and 3 by 2030. So this is a timeline. I thought it would be interesting to share with you how Raft has started. So we set up in 2019. As you'll see on the far left, it says 10 years of domestic retrofit experience. And that led to me doing my step-by-step passive house retrofit of my home, of which my son documented, and he started to share some of the posters that he did of where does cork come from, how did we install the cork, how did we reuse materials on the house. He shared those with his school. And winning the ASBP awards in 2019 for my house really gave a big boost to me wanting to try and connect more deeply with the community. So soon after that, I became a REBA Architecture Ambassador. I started to talk in local schools in Lewisham, and we created something called the Baked Potato Challenge, where we got children to insulate a baked potato with natural insulation materials and try and keep it as warm for as long as possible. It's a much loved activity. Not very easy to do that online on Zoom, but hopefully when lockdown ends, we'll be engaging with that again. And really, Raft owes its genesis to the Lewisham Community Energy Fund, which we applied for in December 2019. It was £15,000. And then by October 2020, we delivered about £45,000 worth of engagement, work, energy, and services. And we ended up creating a fantastic Zoom assembly that was attended by over 100 people. And that was really very exciting. That then led to starting a zero carbon action plan for 5 Lewisham schools, which we're working on at the moment. And in the same way that we massively over-delivered for the St Winifred School, again, our ambition is incredibly wide at the moment. We're carrying out air quality monitoring. We're going to be creating a music composition based on air quality data, and it's going to be a performance that we're going to have in May with a cross-Lewisham set of schools. We're carrying out bus surveys of schools and special air tightness tests. We're looking in particular at classroom environments, at the value of daylighting. Most schools seem to have too much light, they overheat, but also the value of vitamin D is incredibly important. And we're really interested in engaging with acoustics, because if you can't hear your teacher, you can't learn. We're learning that some schools have terrible problems with metering. They don't actually understand the meters, they don't trust the meters, also with air quality. And we're also carrying out lifetime carbon analysis. There's a school that they would like to demolish a very large part of it, and we're actually very keen to try and find ways of keeping that and help them. So our trajectory is to actually, by May, we want to submit a bid for Innovate UK Smart Grant funding.
20 seconds, Oliver.
Yep,
sorry.
To continue this program. And in terms of addressing the 6 pillars, we're doing deep monitoring at the moment and engagement with the school. We're carrying out resource efficiency studies. We're looking at scopes 1, 2, and 3 zero carbon action. We're developing a bespoke template for schools working with carbon intelligence. We're encouraging schools to be very open about where their carbon comes from. We're applying passive house principles to the retrofit of schools, and we're engaging deeply with the community. This is a day in the life of Raft. I was at a school last Monday. We discovered an insulation, a bit like an insulation pillow fight. This is what we find very regularly in schools, horrendously badly installed and messed up by plumbers and the like. We've discovered a massive lack of recycling of food waste across the borough. We found a room on the bottom right built in 2015 with no insulation in the walls or ceiling. And we're discovering these things, and we're actually taking direct action on these right now. So we already have 7 action points just from one school, just from one visit. So our mission is to make a deep impact across London boroughs and across the UK. We want to scale up. We want to reach as many people as possible. The graphic on the right shows the 5 schools are working in Lewisham and the potential sphere of influence on homes and helping children spread the message out from the school to their parents and beyond. As I said, we're planning to submit an Innovate UK Smart Grant, and winning these awards would obviously be a huge support and boost to our development. So thanks very much.
Excellent, thank you, Harry. Really exciting project. So I went to school in Lee, so this is very familiar territory for me. So please keep your questions coming in to Harry. Kate, there's a few questions on the Q&A which are still live. I know you guys are typing furiously, so thank you for that. So, so Harry, I'm not sure if you were able to join us for our expo yesterday with Professor Catherine Oakes, and so she was talking about schools, and we were talking about sort of openable windows. I mean, generally speaking, what's your experience when it comes to schools and windows and being able to control ventilation?
Don't get me started.
Okay, sorry.
The building regulations don't. The building regulations, in my opinion, don't deliver good air quality for classrooms. We've just installed 9 temperature, relative humidity, and carbon dioxide sensors in classrooms in one of the schools. And we're monitoring, we've obviously just had half term with no occupation, and we're monitoring how many children are in each class before the 8th of March return. So we know that in some classrooms there are 8 children plus 1 teacher.
Right.
And the levels of CO2 that are being reached are about 1,700.
Oh no.
So, you know, we're sort of waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen when, you know, they all return and it's a rainy day and the windows are closed and they don't go out for a break. So I would say generally it's shocking and very poor. And we gave a talk to staff at one of the schools. We did a whole retrofit talk to 35 staff members for 1 hour in their regular staff meeting, which was really wonderful. And one teacher stayed behind, and bless him, he said, look, yeah, but I'm really quite moved by what you've told me about carbon dioxide and I want to do something about it. And I'm wondering, should I maybe take my children out for a bit more during the day? Should I actually just sort of restructure my teaching?
Yeah.
And I said, well, look, in the 1900s, early 1900s, there was something called the open school movement, and actually children were taught outside. So, you know, it'd be really wonderful if we can instigate some kind of change through the monitoring and the sharing of data, and then the sort of ability to look at it. But his classroom, this one teacher's classroom, has 1 openable window. You know, there's not, you know, just in one corner of the room. So, you know, he's bound to have bad air quality, and he's driving over in a couple of days. I'm going to give him an air quality monitor, and then we're going to start tracking it with him. So,
can I ask you whose air quality monitors you're using? I know it's a slightly nerdy question, but no, I thought you'd appreciate the nerd level.
So,
okay.
So this is the IQ Air. It's about £250.
Okay.
And it has remote connection. It measures PM 2.5s
and
carbon dioxide as well, and temperature and relative humidity. But for the bigger system we've installed, we're using OmniSense, the high OmniSense track system.
Okay, really interesting. Okay, and how confident are you on the accuracy side of that one that you just showed us there?
Well, I've been calibrating them. They're sort of they're plus or minus 10, 20 ppm.
Okay.
So,
okay.
You know,
So
kind of
good enough
say it's
anyway.
less than that, but I've put them next to each other and I've calibrated them a bit, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. We should do another seminar around that, Harry. I'd really like to do that because that's one of my key things is trying to find affordable kit to measure indoor air quality and to measure things like ppm. Okay. So we have been 10 minutes. Let me just check to see if we've got any further questions coming in the chat. So I think there's maybe there's a quick question here. So Harry, what are you finding are the main obstacles other than COVID to your mission? Good question.
We're jumping over all the obstacles at the moment. We're just with our passion and engagement, we're just going for it. Probably it's the obvious one, it's money. But we have managed to successfully get a bid through the Public Sector Decarbonisation Fund for a school retrofit, step one of our action plans, which is very exciting. So it looks like some work's going ahead this summer already in Lewisham.
Fantastic, Harry. You're an example to all of us. So thank you so much for your your contribution today. So we're going to move on, everybody. So we're on to our last finalist of the day. It's only because Zoom Regenerative starts with Z that we've kept you to last, Martin. But we're going to show your video now. Thanks, Richard.
Hi, this is Martin Brown, personally, and welcome to Zoom Regenerative, the online Zoom series that throughout 2020 has explored insights into regenerative futures with a common aim of making the planet a better place for all. From April through to December, over 25 sessions, over 40 guests have shared regenerative insights, demonstrating we do indeed have the solutions. The challenge now facing us is the scaling up of those solutions. And along the Zoom regenerative journey, we have built an amazing, awesome community of practice dedicated and committed to regenerative practices. And it's a journey that will continue through 2021.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, if you would like to share your screen and whiz through your slides, Martin, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure to do so.
Thank
So
you.
good afternoon, and thanks, Simon. And yeah, what a treat to listen to the other 5 finalists. It's been a real delight this afternoon. Are you seeing my presentation then?
If you want to put it full screen.
Oh, sorry.
That's it.
Oh, that's better. You can see it.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, it's been a real treat and a real delight to be here. Just a bit of background. I spent a lot of time over the last sort of decade or so running various events and basically involved in knowledge share. And when we got round to the lockdown last March, April, it seemed only natural to start doing that online, and Zoom seemed the right vehicle to do so. So we moved to Zoom Regenerative. And Zoom's quite a nice tag to put onto this, accelerating regenerative thinking. But around March, April last year, we had time to stop and notice nature, time to stop and reflect on the built environment and what we're doing. So Zoom Regenerative started in April 2020. Actually, it started on Earth Day 2020. And at the same time, this wonderful piece appeared in the Financial Times by Arundhati Roy, which compared the pandemic to a portal. And that's the question, what's good? What do we want to take through that portal? And what do we want to leave behind? What bad do we really cling to unnecessarily? And to be honest, if we cannot really imagine the future that we want, if we don't really know what good looks like, then it's going to be a nigh impossible task to actually get there. So this was an interesting challenge, actually. Zoom Regenerative is run for, 27 sessions. We've had over 45 guests. We've covered umpteen tasks. And mapping those against the pillars was an interesting task. And it struck me, and I think we all know this, it's all about connectivity. As John Muir said, if you pull on one thing, you find that everything's connected. So you only need to look at one aspect of sustainability, regenerative sustainability. And then we realize that we need a complete toolbox and a complete approach to what we're doing. So these topics are the topics we've covered over those 28 sessions from all those rings around the globe there. And in 2021, we've got many more to come. Just want to sort of focus on some of the underpinning ones. It's interesting that mindfulness, even TM, has emerged as a sort of a bedrock with that higher level of awareness of our place in nature for really successful regenerative approaches. We will continue through 2021, and I'm actually delighted that Anna Williamson, who's on the call here, has agreed to support and help through 2021, which means we can do much more. So in 2021, we will continue with our fortnightly events. But at the request of members, we are going to run some hourly tutorials, or tutorials for an hour. Many people have said, I just love the discussions in Zoom Regenerative, but I'd like to go back to basics on some of the topics because we don't know everything about everything. So we're looking at various tutorials around Living Building Challenge, around mindfulness, about literacy, place. An interesting which has cropped up is the regenerative project management. You know, we know about biophilia, we know about biomimicry, but how do we actually manage projects which are truly regenerative, truly deep green? And we are starting to move into sort of hybrid conferences where we'll be doing things both online and in presence, and hopefully we're doing more as we go forward in present. But again, linking people from around the world is incredibly important. And we've got our first hybrid event coming up in Sabden in Lancashire, connected to the Restore project on the 20th of April.
30 seconds, Martin, thank you.
Yeah, and then why Zoom Regenerative? Why are we looking for your votes today? Well, it's been a real wonderful journey over the last year, and that will continue. And as these quotes suggest, you know, prove here, it's a vibrant community. It's nurturing and it's supporting, it's growing and it's thriving. And we'd welcome you to join us. I'd love to have the other finalists and long list finalists as well share their thoughts through Zoom Regenerative. So thanks for the time. I look forward to the questions. Back to you, Simon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Martin. So I'm just looking into the questions at the minute. So there's a couple of questions for you, Harry, in the Q&A, if you can wander through those and pick out the ones that relate to you. So thank you for that. Yeah, so Martin, I've been to a few of your sessions. I've very much enjoyed them. I'm very interested in the idea of going back to basics and your ideas of your sort of tutorials, if you like.
Sure.
Because they're I think, yes, the sort of ground, the sort of bedrock that sometimes is, we think we know, but actually do we really? So yeah, looking forward to hearing a little bit more about those. Are there any that you've got lined up?
Yes, indeed. The first batch we mentioned on the slide there. So that's the Living Building Challenge.
Okay.
I forget which ones they were. But the way Zoom Regenerative is work, we run for about 8-10 sessions, and then we take a break, usually around summertime and around springtime. And it's in that springtime, hence May, we will be doing those tutorials. But the other reason, Simon, is we have a lot of students who are dropping onto the Zoom Regeneratives, which is brilliant. And they listen, they learn, and they engage in the conversation. And it's those students who are saying, hang on, I'd just like some basics on this around ecology or the Living Building Challenge or X, Y, and Z. So that's the reason we thought, okay, we'll just take an hour and we'll do them as webinars, but we'll try and keep the same friendly Zoom Regenerative experience that you saw when you joined us.
Yeah, and so presumably you record each session, and then they're available to watch and catch up?
They are indeed. We have a Patreon scheme running, so people can join a Patreon, and we make those videos available through that scheme. Yeah, it's something we really need to focus on, and something we sort of need help going forward to the future. We have umpteen hours of recording, which are available to Patreon members. I'd love the idea of being to turn them into small 3-minute videos, and then people could put a playlist together. So as you'd put something together on Spotify, you could choose, okay, I'd like all these for my run, my car journey. So you bring them all together. That would be audio, of course, if you're in a car on a run, but you could also put them together as your own playlist for GB. But that's something in the future as we grow.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I've got a question here from Barbara, who we know is not Eileen Sutherland. So perhaps, Richard, if I can ask you to unmute, and we'll we get to see Barbara's. Do we get to see Barbara's face? We don't, do we?
Unfortunately not.
No. What a downer.
Are you
So
there,
just
Eileen? Barbara, sorry.
Barbara stroke Eileen.
Not.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can. Thanks, Barbara
I'll
stroke
try
Eileen.
and talk in a Geordie accent, but it won't look good.
Sure.
I was just wondering, Martin, if you're seeing any increase in people being interested in the Zoom regenerative over the last year, and how has COVID affected it? And
yes,
are you seeing more participation now than you were?
Yeah, there has been an increase, and as I said, that increase tends to be in students. And when we look at the Zoom regenerative map, that increase is also regional. So we had a special from Australia and New Zealand, and then there was a real cluster of engagement from there. We've also had real good engagement around a cluster in the Latin American area, particularly around Costa Rica, Trinidad and Tobago, just this week. I think, oddly, going back to work as we come out of lockdown may affect Zoom regenerative because it was a lockdown project. And now we're not locked down. We need to work out where we go. But I think we're going to move into a hybrid world anyway. So we will certainly have a need to share things through Zoom regenerative, through Zoom and other media. And also the wonderful idea that we can learn from ground root projects in Costa Rica. We can learn from things in Canada, from Pakistan, etc. So I think COVID has sort of opened up that door for better sharing around the world.
Yeah, okay, last question. Thank you so much. So I've got an anonymous question here. So saying, what's your biggest aim for your webinar to achieve? And who is your main audience?
Main audience, I guess it's in two parts. Regenerative practitioners to share what they're doing, but also, yeah, those who want to learn more about regenerative, not from a textbook, but from real life, from people actually sharing the nuts and bolts of a project. There's another question I see in there. Someone, if I could take that one. How much does it cost to attend? Zero. It's free. But there is donations and a Patreon scheme people could join.
Okay, thank you so much. There's a couple of other questions that are coming in. So please keep your questions coming in to all of our contestants. Martin, if I'm going to ask you to keep your eye on the Q&A, and if you can just respond to those questions. We're going to allow a little bit more time for Q&A for the audience to finally make their decisions. So now we're going to just show a video from our winner from last year. We thought this would inspire everybody and allow everybody just a little bit of time to reflect on their decision, ask any last questions of our finalists. Yeah, so over to you, Richard.
Okay, so this is squash, one of our winners from last year. So
great, thank you.
We should probably start by talking about how this all began.
Back in 2014, when we were looking for a home, really, because we've been doing gardening projects and creative art space projects for many years on Windsor Street and in Liverpool 8, but we wanted to put down roots. So we were keen to have a community design process as part of that.
It was a good chance to get involved with a client who really actually cared about participation and cared about environmental outcomes, and to work with people who could see the potential in a site that was basically some derelict land.
Yeah, the site was like an old disused garage and a dumping ground for years, but it still felt great because it's so near to residential properties, so it feels like it's really in the heart of the community. And I think working with you and the practices that you have at Urbed was, it was just so great, because people who would, you know, never normally get involved in design practices had this brilliant opportunity to really consider what a new space might be like.
We spent a lot of time telling stories about what the building might be, and kind of imagining a day in the life of the building in 2020. So just having the power of all of those people's imaginations as part of the process, it helped make a better building.
People were so excited to choose the materials, but also to be involved in a building that was so environmentally sound, and really to learn about things in that context.
Because we started very early on talking about what materials would be used.
Yeah.
So the idea of using kind of relatively locally grown, sustainably grown timber, the idea of using recycled materials. So we've got recycled glass aggregate below the slab, and we've got recycled newspaper in the walls. Do you remember all those discussions about the thermal envelope and how you thought I was a little bit obsessive about it?
I love the thermal envelope. We're really pushing that thermal envelope.
So many of the more finishing touches in the building as well are, you know, if you look at the counter in the shop, cafe, it's made out of things that were left over after the building, and these things as well. So,
yeah. So this is the fencing from the original site that kept people out, and now we've made them into trolley beds for growing. Previously we just worked from a garden space, so in the winter it was pretty horrible, and now actually in the winter the gardeners can still have the life of the garden year, but they can be inside and be warm. It always feels like a luxury, even though it's like a very effectively really simple but so well designed and so beautiful. In the 2 years or so that we've actually been open to the public, it's really become a place that people, it's a destination venue, people want to be here and hang out. It meant a lot to me when we won the People's Prize, particularly because this is a people-powered organisation and building, so it felt like the right prize for us to be awarded. And when we brought it back, people were so chuffed, and I think it's given people confidence and ambition to do more interesting stuff. And you know, we've got a small site next door that we're currently calling the Wild Site, but we're considering other potential building projects there. Then it becomes like a model for this sort of building. Visitors from other cities have all said it's a game changer for the street and for their idea of community building.
Great, worthy winners from this time last year, of course, where we were all together in a room. There's a thought, isn't it? So just about now, I'd be making sure that the drinks were arriving and the beer was nice and cold. So we're going to launch our audience poll now, Richard, I think, and we're going to ask you to put your votes. And whilst that's underway, I'm going to ask our board members to come up. So we've had so many problems looking, so we ended up with a joint winner. So we've got 2 of our board members here today to award those. So Jane, maybe I'm going to ask you to come forward first and share your screen and say a few words. That'd be lovely.
I wasn't going to share my screen. I think
okay,
it's just
fine.
Another slide. Possibly. I'm getting a bit nervous about how it's going to go. But
right. Don't worry, Jane. I'll share the screen. You just need to say a few words.
Yeah. So this was a really hard job. It was really hard just to shortlist, well, to long list and to 12, and then to shortlist to 6, and then to actually make the selection, and as Simon says, we chose two. So it's my pleasure to do the first award, and for that one, basically we were really impressed by this entry in terms of the professionalism of the presentation that they made for us, the participation, the very active participation of so many people in the initiative, and the impact that it seems to have. So I'm really pleased, and particularly because it's something that I'm very passionate about, but I'm really, really pleased to give the first prize to ACAN. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. So a big ripple of applause for ACAN there. And
Thank you.
this is a picture of your award. So I would normally hand this to you, and there'd be ripples of applause and photos with Jane, and then we'd have a nice drink. But we're going to have to use our imagination for all of that. That is a real award.
Yeah.
So it really will have ACAN on it. You're going to have to work out how you share that around. But I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts, Mathieu.
I think it's great, and you know, just thinking like what a huge impact this campaign would have if we actually get these regulations, you know, that PARZ regulation. It would just be amazing, because all of the work that, you know, the ASBP has been done over the years, and suddenly it would become something that everyone has to do, you know. So it would just like, it's transformative, you know, and so that's why it's so important that we get regulations.
Yeah, really exciting. Thank you very much, Mathieu. Thank you very much, Jane. Okay, so over to Mark, who's our vice chair. So Mark will be in his best tuxedo, no doubt. And Mark's going to be awarding our second joint winner.
Thanks, Simon. I couldn't fit into my tuxedo. I've put on a bit too much weight in lockdown. I think we had a couple of brainstorms about the awards last year, given the challenges that we were facing. We thought we've got to take a different approach to it, and I don't think anyone at the time would have envisaged how successful it's been and the quality of the entrants, and particularly the quality of the finalists. It's been, and the enjoyment that we have had throughout the whole judging process has been really, really amazing. But I've got to announce another winner. And this finalist really ticked all the boxes and touched all the judges. And it inspires not just through the concept, but through the substance of its action. And we were all taken aback by the level of understanding and motivation that this initiative is creating amongst stakeholders. And when you look at the stakeholders, that's all the more impressive. This winner is something that's empowering with knowledge. It's showing we can all influence change. And if we believe change is possible, then change is possible. So without further ado, I'll get the name right. It's Retrofit Action for Tomorrow is the winner. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. It's becoming a slight habit, Harry. But I don't know if you want to just say a couple of words.
Huge thanks. Congratulations to all finalists. I think everybody's entries were wonderful, and I hope we can all collaborate together. So I really hope we can do that. And you know, I have to say well done to Nidhi, to Isabella, to Hanray for all their hard work, because we're all working round the clock, as you can probably gather from the slide, the second slide. We're running a lot of projects at the same time, and we're all deeply committed. So it's an award for all of us. And also I have to say for the engagement at the schools, because they are being amazing. So thank you.
Okay, congratulations, Harry. That's really, really, really good news. Okay, so now on to the People's Prize. So I'm going to hand over to Tabitha Binding at TTF, and who are our gold sponsor today. So Tabitha, if I can ask you to unmute.
Thank you, Simon. That I got ready. I don't actually know who the winners are yet, because I know Rich is meant to be pinging them to me.
Right, I was keeping you
in suspense. I'm like,
absolute suspense. I'm just gonna go and get my snare drum and start the slow roll, and then build up to a crescendo.
Well, I'm here on behalf of the Timber Trade Federation, and thank you. What the ASBP has done since its inception, let alone over this last year, absolutely amazing. The webinars you've put on, the people you've put together, yeah, definitely is just so supportive of what you're doing. I mean, it was so difficult to judge. I know we all sort of sat back and went, how do we pick? How do we get from the long list to the short list? Let alone how do we get from the short list to the winners? And then who do the people choose? But I now have the answer of our audience, and it's Raft. Step forward, Harry, please.
Okay, so top marks there for Harry. And so double winner, fantastic. So we need to make sure you've got enough space to put all these awards. You're gonna have to get a special trophy cabinet.
I think we're going to share them out. Thank you so much. Thank you audience, and thank you ASBP, because we probably wouldn't be here without you. I really mean that.
That's fantastic. That's really nice to hear. We've really enjoyed the process. We'd like to thank everybody, the audience, and our sponsors. So the awards, I mean, they're interesting. So there's quite a story attached to them. So my Welsh isn't particularly good. Tabitha, your Welsh is much better.
Well,
I know you're in Wales.
I am.
So I'm not sure where that workshop is based, but it's definitely Welsh.
So this is Aberbargoed. So Dylan Jones runs the Woodland project down in Aberbargoed, which looks at joining up or linking up the woodlands through to designers and manufacturers. And so as part of woodland management, you need to SIN it. So these fantastic, I mean, they're not trophies, are they? They're pieces of artwork made from ash and cherry. That balance and tension. I just want to see them. I want to come and play with them. Absolutely amazing. So Dylan did his degree in Loughborough. He's a furniture designer by trade, and it would have been lovely to have him here today to actually talk about them. But he's working bringing on the next generation of designers. So he's working with a master's student at Phoebe at Oldfield, and again, it's just a really lovely community project down in South Wales. I mean, they go into the woodlands, they help manage them, they bring the timber back into the workshop, they mill it, they dry it, and then they make these fabulous items. Yeah, go and check up on them and have a look.
Yes, excellent. I can't wait to see them. I think they're currently with Richard.
They are indeed. They will be making their way in the post.
Hope you've got an extra one for yourself.
Yeah, fantastic.
So final thank you to our sponsors, so Timber Trade Federation, Cleveland Steel and Styco. Really, really good. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much to the audience. Thank you so much to all of our contestants, everybody who entered. You all deserve to win. So there's our details there, and thank you very much, and good afternoon.